He was my best man and my brother, but I found him stealing more than just the spotlight. One garage kiss destroyed a lifetime of trust, and somehow, I'm the one blamed for pushing them together. Never thought I'd discover the ugly truth during a Thanksgiving dinner. These occasions are meant to be about sharing gratitude, watching football, and enjoying Mom's famous turkey with cranberry sauce. Instead, there I was, standing in my parents' kitchen, witnessing my wife of 5 years in an intimate embrace with my older brother. It's funny how life's biggest devastations often come wrapped in the most ordinary moments. You know what's ironic? Just that morning, I've been thinking about how lucky I was. Sarah, that's not her real name, and I had been together for 7 years, married for 4 of them. We met at a mutual friend's wedding. She was the maid of honor. I was a groomsman. Classic setup, right? She caught my eye immediately, not just because of her looks, but because of how she carried herself. There was this magnetic energy about her that drew people in. While I watched from the sidelines, she worked the room, making everyone feel like they were the most important person there. That's always been our dynamic. She's the social butterfly, and I'm more of an observer. It worked for us, or at least I thought it did. She'd light up every room she entered, and I'd be there, proud to be the quiet support behind her sparkle. We balanced each other out. When things got too hectic, I was her anchor. When I got too serious, she'd pull me out of my shell. Perfect complementary pieces to the same puzzle. That's what everyone said. Our early years were like a dream. We moved in together after a year, got married 3 years later in a beautiful ceremony by the beach. Sarah wanted a big wedding, 200 guests, dance floor under the stars, fireworks at midnight. I would have been happy with something smaller, but seeing her joy as she planned every detail made it all worthwhile. Mike, my brother, was my best man. He gave a touching speech about growing up together, about how he'd never seen me happier than when I was with Sarah. If only I'd known then what that happiness would cost me. Mike and I had always been close, despite our differences. He's 2 years older, always been the charismatic one, the achiever. Star quarterback in high school, full scholarship to an Ivy League college, successful career in consulting. Meanwhile, I took a more conventional path, state college, steady job in software development, comfortable but not flashy. But we never let those differences come between us. We were more than brothers, we were best friends. At least, that's what I believed. When Sarah first met my family, especially Mike, they clicked instantly. They shared the same quick wit, the same love for adventure, the same outgoing nature. I actually felt proud seeing how well my wife fit in with my family. They'd share inside jokes, team up during game nights, sometimes even gang up on me with their playful teasing. I took it all in stride, grateful that the 2 most important people in my life got along so well. Looking back now, I wonder if I was just being naive, if I somehow enabled what was to come. This Thanksgiving was supposed to be special, our first big family gathering since COVID restrictions had eased up. Mike had been traveling extensively for his consulting job, and we hadn't seen much of him lately. Sarah had been acting different too, more distant, always on her phone, working late hours at her PR firm. I chalked it up to stress, to the holiday season approaching, to a million little excuses that seem so obvious now in hindsight. The morning started normally enough. Sarah and I arrived early to help with preparations. Mom was in her element, directing kitchen traffic like a seasoned conductor. Dad was already settled in his favorite recliner, watching the pre-game shows. The house filled with the familiar sense of sage, roasting turkey, and Mom's secret recipe, pumpkin pie. Cousins started arriving with their kids, filling the house with the chaos of family gatherings. Sarah jumped right into helping in the kitchen, charming everyone as usual. She always knew exactly what to say, how to make people feel special. I caught myself watching her, thinking how lucky I was. She caught me looking and smiled, but something felt off about it. It didn't quite reach her eyes the way it used to. Mike arrived around noon, fashionably late as always. He brought an expensive bottle of wine and some story about traffic that had everyone laughing. I noticed how Sarah's laugh seemed a little too bright, how she touched her hair more frequently when he was around. But I pushed those thoughts away. After all, this was my brother and my wife. They were family. As the day progressed, I started noticing more things that seemed off. The way they'd both disappear at the same time, only to return moments apart. The lingering glances across the dinner table. How their hands brushed against each other when passing dishes. Small things easily explained away, but they started piling up in my mind like evidence I didn't want to acknowledge. I tried convincing myself I was being paranoid. Maybe the holiday stress was getting to me. Maybe that third glass of wine was clouding my judgment. Maybe I was reading too much into innocent interactions. But there was this knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. This voice in the back of my mind that kept whispering that something wasn't right. It was after dinner when everything fell apart. I went to grab more ice from the garage freezer we'd run out during dinner, and Mom wanted to serve coffee and dessert. The garage has always been my dad's domain, filled with his woodworking projects and tools, the scent of sawdust and motor oil. It should have been a simple task: grab the ice, head back inside. Instead, it became the moment my world shattered. They were behind my dad's workbench, partially hidden by his latest project, a cabinet he was building for Mom's Christmas present. Sarah was pressed against the wall, Mike's hands on her waist, their lips locked in a kiss that left no room for innocent explanations. The bag of ice slipped from my hands, the crash of ice cubes against concrete shattering the moment. Mike jumped back like he'd been electrocuted, his face draining of color. But Sarah? She just stood there, almost defiant. There was no shock in her expression, no embarrassment. Just a cold kind of acceptance that somehow hurt more than the betrayal itself. "Let me explain," she started, but I cut her off. What followed was surreal. Instead of apologizing, she turned it around on me. According to her, I had been emotionally unavailable, too focused on work, not present enough in our relationship. She talked about how Mike understood her, how they hadn't meant for this to happen, but I had pushed them together with my emotional distance. The kicker? She actually said I was ruining her special connection with Mike by reacting this way, as if I was the one destroying relationships by catching them in their betrayal, as if somehow my discovery of their affair was the real problem, not their actions that led to this moment. Mike just stood there, silent, looking at his shoes like a scolded child. My big brother, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd stood up for me in high school, who'd been my best man and promised in his speech to always have my back, couldn't even look me in the eye. That silence hurt more than any excuse he could have offered. It was an admission of guilt wrapped in cowardice. I don't really remember leaving the garage. Everything became a blur of motion and noise. I vaguely recall walking through the kitchen, ignoring Mom's questions about where the ice was, brushing past confused relatives who had no idea what had just happened. Someone, maybe my cousin Lisa, tried to stop me, asking if I was okay. I must have looked as shattered as I felt. The next few days were a haze of unanswered calls and ignored messages. Sarah tried reaching out multiple times, her voicemails ranging from tearful apologies to angry accusations. According to her last message, I was overreacting and needed to think about what I really wanted. As if there was anything to think about after what I'd seen. Mike sent a long text about how things just happened and how sorry he was for betraying my trust. He talked about fate and circumstances and a lot of other pretty words that meant nothing. I blocked his number without responding. Some betrayals go too deep for words to fix. The divorce proceedings are ongoing, and they're as messy as you'd expect. Sarah's trying to paint me as the neglectful husband who drove her to seek comfort elsewhere. My brother's reputation in the family is in tatters. Though some relatives are already making excuses for him, he was always a ladies' man. These things happen. Blood is thicker than water, as if any of that justifies what they did. Some family members have tried to play peacemaker, suggesting therapy or mediation. Mom keeps saying that family should stick together, that we can work through this. But she didn't see what I saw. She didn't feel the knife of betrayal twist in her gut. This isn't just about a broken marriage, it's about violated trust on multiple levels. People ask if I regret going to that Thanksgiving dinner, if I wish I'd remained ignorant. The truth is, I don't. The pain of discovery was intense, but living a lie would have been worse. At least now I can rebuild my life on honest ground. I've learned that sometimes the people you trust the most are capable of the deepest betrayals, But I've also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I'm not sharing this for sympathy or advice. I'm sharing this because sometimes life throws you curveballs that seem impossible to handle, but you survive. You adapt. You move forward. The story isn't over just because one chapter ended badly. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this journey of healing and rediscovery.